Hi, everyone. How are you? This is Amy Valdivia with the Divorce Podcast, the baby of the Divorce Lending Association. And I am very excited because why? Today we have someone who is going to help us with the number one thing on our mind: money. Money, 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 money. And that mindset and how our home and our money are cared for in a divorce. We have Miss Michelle Mohammad. Yay! Hi, Michelle. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's jump right into our interview. Please share with everyone who's Michelle and give us a little bit about your background. Tell us about you, your practice, and what's this thing called the Next Chapter Divorce? Why did you create it and what's it all about?
Great questions. Well, I am at the heart of everything. I am a relationship person. So on the personal side, I'm the parent of two middle schoolers. I've been married for over 20 years to my husband. We're both Seton Hall alumni, go
Oh,
Pirates. And essentially, I come to the financial industry by way of a completely different background than most. I was a chemist before
oh,
becoming a financial planner. And essentially, I won't go through all the different details or whatnot, but I wanted to find a way to help people. And whereas my mother chose the medical profession, I ended up choosing the financial profession. But I feel like it's the same type of concept in terms of helping people take care of their financial health.
hmm.
And it has been a wonderful journey. More recently, over the last few years, it really became clearer and clearer to me after over 20 years of being a financial planner that there are so many nuances to the finances of divorce.
Mm.
And I myself, as a financial planner, did not know certain things and had to learn it the hard way, or in most of the cases, saw so many people
Oh,
come to me with the shadows and ghosts of their divorces past still haunting them. And I use that term so frequently, so I sound redundant, but at the same time, it's really true. There are people who I know made different decisions with respect to the division of their assets or maybe even pensions and so on that are affecting them in their new marriage or new relationship. I have
hmm.
so many wonderful clients who've been married for a couple decades, but it's their second marriage. And essentially, they're having to rebuild and so on. So
Wow.
I wanted to get in on the front end of that and help people make informed decisions, help them understand how that would impact them in the future, and also make sure that I was giving sound advice. Fortunately, I never had a situation where I felt that I had advised someone inappropriately for a divorce. I did see what happened when others did that. And in most cases, if not all, I think that was not intentional. It was inadvertent. It was just because of the lack of knowledge of all the nooks and crannies and nuances and special treatment of divorce.
I think that when we first met during our pre-show discussions, this is exactly why I feel we're such a great fit with the Divorce Lending Association. It is that informed decision making that we want for our divorcing homeowners. And it is about the education that comes with the acronyms behind your name, the CDFA. It's a specialized training
Yes.
that is required. Dive a little deeper into that. Why? I mean, you went from chemistry to financial planning, and then you went to CDFA. I mean,
Yes,
that
yes.
it's one of those things where like, what? How did that happen? Please. I mean, you touched a little bit
Well,
about mom being in medicine, but come on.
oh, I
I,
mean, the very short answer of that, and I understand this more now as an adult, the psychology of it all. Now that I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old who, by the way, are part of the reason that I was so excited that you were excited to have me, because I love my children, they love me. But let's just say it no longer feels like a little dog's tail is wagging when I walk through the door, etc. It's not that exuberant welcome that I used to get. So it's nice to get that. But what I realized is that my mom is an oncologist and medical professor. I look like her. I talk like her, to some extent, I think like her. And I was like a little mini me. And for that reason, I rebelled and said, I'm not going to go into medicine, even though I had no desire to go into oncology per se. So I wanted to do something different. But truly, at my core, I am an educator. And when I look at both of my parents, my dad was in international business development and so on, but he always taught at the higher education levels on the side. You know, he'd do like adjunct professor type stuff. And my mom being a medical professor. And at the heart of everything is education. But you have to know your stuff before you can educate someone else on it. So I found a different way to serve people and help people, and that was through the financial route. The CDFA, I mean, again, being a certified financial planner professional, I thought that, hey, I know what I need to know. But there are all these special rules, exceptions, nuances, et cetera, associated with divorce. And it became clear to me that if I wanted to be able to give solid advice to divorcing folks, that I would need to get specialization or special training in that area. And that's why I became a certified divorce financial analyst. And that was a few years ago. And then I started the next chapter divorce because, yes, I love what I do with my separate financial planning career. But in terms of helping people figure out the settlement options, understand their settlement options, figure out what they should or could negotiate, or if I'm a financial neutral, just saying to both parties, here's the information you'll need to make good decisions, and then it's up to you to decide. If I'm an advocate, then I'm really helping my client understand what their rights are and what might be in their best interest, and look at different scenarios and say, hey, this is how this could impact you in the future.
Right.
Yeah.
So you answered a question that I was thinking about. Okay, do you do work with both parties?
I do. Yeah. So I work in a number of different ways. And when I'm working in the collaborative divorce world, I'm part of a team. The team could include
Right.
a CDLP or mortgage professional. It can include an attorney or mediator. I would be the financial neutral in that sense, in the sense that we're all working towards helping the couple, but we're not taking sides. So we're not giving one person more information or more advice or anything like that. In fact, you don't really give advice. You give the information and educate folks so they can make the decision. In that respect, collaborative divorce is very similar to mediation, because in mediation, again, I'm a financial neutral and I'm supporting the couple and their mediator or their attorney in that process. When it comes to litigation, which is my least favorite, then I'm supporting the attorney and the client, and I'm an advocate. I'm not going to be able to be neutral because they're adversarial in that sense.
Right.
And it's a lot more expensive, which is one of the reasons why it's not my favorite work to do. I think no one benefits from that. And sometimes it's not possible to avoid that based on the breakdown in the relationship or what has happened. But like I said, from a financial standpoint, everyone wins when we lower the costs associated with the actual process of divorce and come out with an amicable or at least civil relationship, especially when there are children involved. That may not be an issue for several of my clients who are gray divorce folks, but at the same time, you still want to be able to show up at the family wedding or family event and not be at each other's throats and make the whole thing uncomfortable.
Right. You speak the language of mediation and collaboration. I presume you've been mediation trained?
Yes, mediation trained and collaborative trained. I will say that while I've been mediation trained, my goal in having that training was to be able to support mediators and clients going through mediation as opposed to doing the mediation myself. At this point in time, I have no desire to do the actual mediation. I want to be supportive of the
Right.
process so that they have the financial information they need. I've heard from multiple mediators that they do not feel equipped to answer the financial questions that I'm trained in. And the same thing with attorneys. There are a lot of attorneys who do feel that they have the information, but at the same time, they realize, there's only so much I have. And truly, they're not trained in looking at the long term repercussions of financial decisions.
So what's your answer when they say just that? Well, I'm not equipped or I don't have that information because there are professionals that may have an ego or maybe not necessarily a big ego, but maybe just don't want to admit that they don't have the skills or the trainings. When you feel like they actually have admitted or they're going down that path where they don't necessarily know how to admit to you that they don't have the skills, what do you say? How do you share?
That's a great question, Amy. I think at the end of the day, we all have to take our egos out of it.
Hmm.
So I have to remind myself that even if I think I'm the best at XYZ, which in this case would be the financial aspect of divorce, that I'm not doing anybody any favors if I'm just, parading and peacocking or whatever the
Right.
expression would be for a woman. um, the real goal here is to take care of the client. And so essentially what I do is I say, I'm here to support you in supporting the client. This is not an oppositional situation. I hopefully, if there is a difference of opinion on something financial, I try to take that offline as opposed to in front of the client. I've heard some attorneys say some remarkable things, and it's like, well, that's not quite how we would do it, the
Right.
folks who are financials. Um, but they feel comfortable to say that. And recently I had a conversation with a collaboratively trained attorney, and she said, you have to understand that what happens to us a lot of times is that people expect us to give these answers so we can get pulled in that direction and
Right.
not even realize that we're going over the line
Or down a wrong path.
or down the wrong path. I just try to approach it from the standpoint of, hey, I know you're fantastic at the legal side of things. I just want to bring up to you a few points here and there that I think would be helpful to your client, our client, and then leave it where it is. I will say that in terms of making choices, if I find that someone is not willing to set aside their ego and their main goal is being right or having the speaking part all the time, then that may not be someone who I continue to work with in the future. No, I don't think that I'll be a good fit for this situation because perhaps there's another CDFA who works better with them.
Right.
And that could be the case. On the other hand, I think we've all had situations where people who we thought were quote unquote lost causes
All right.
shock us and amaze us as we prove ourselves over time.
But you brought up a great point about maybe it's not somebody that you want to work with in the future, maybe because you don't see eye to eye in solutions. The flip side is true as well. We talk to our mediation students that come to the DLA. That's one of the best ways to not be invited back to another mediation session is to cross paths with the mediator or attorney. It's a great idea. You said so maybe I just need to take the remainder of this conversation offline when we're not in the setting of the client because I do disagree with you. And it's a nice way of approaching them. Well, we met because you sought out the Divorce Lending Association. And I want people who are listening to our conversation really hear that. Why? Why did you seek us out?
Essentially, there's a very common theme in most divorces,
Mhm.
especially during these times where interest rates are higher than they were 5 years ago, which to some extent was the bottom
Mm-hmm.
of interest rates, right? During the pandemic, if you were like myself and my husband, we refinanced. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're in the twos, the high twos, but still the twos. I don't think we'll ever get there again unless we buy down the rate ridiculously. So, what happens a lot of times now is that a central part of the finances of the divorce would be the division of the house or who gets the house.
Right.
And if the mortgage was in both names, then can this person take on the new mortgage at a higher
Right.
interest rate? Is there some way to assume the mortgage? All that kind of stuff. And quite frankly, while I am specialized in the finances of divorce, I'm not a mortgage lender. And I'm not a mortgage lender who spends most of their time or a significant amount of time working on mortgages associated with divorces.
Right.
So it was important to me to make sure that as part of my team or as part of my referral network, I could
Right.
provide clients with folks that they could be assured were highly trained in the mortgage aspect of divorce. And certainly being a member of the Institute for Divorce Financial Analysts, the Divorce Lending Association's name multiple times, especially Jody and so on. And so it was a natural as far as that goes. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
there are situations where there are other mortgage professionals who are part of a collaborative practice that I'm working with who I know are also trained. But generally speaking, as far as a certification or a mark of specialization in the divorce aspect of mortgages and mortgage lending, that's where the CDLP designation, the Divorce Lending Association, comes into play. And so I just wanted to make sure that I had that relationship in place because it's not once in a while, it's a
Right.
regular occurrence right now. And I don't want to have to know all the things when that's what you all do. That's your
Right.
expertise. I have expertise in the big grand scheme of things and then the nooks and crannies of different types of assets and such.
We all have our own lane for sure.
Yeah.
And with that said, tell me your lane as far as the geographic area that you cover in the US, because you're very specific.
Well, actually, it's funny because if you go to Google, it'll say Maryland, DC, Virginia, the DMV area, as we call it. But truly, I can help anybody all across the United States.
Okay.
CDFAs are not limited like lawyers are
Okay.
or medical practitioners. That being said, the majority of my clients are going to be in the DMV area. And
Okay.
so obviously I would have the most knowledge of the different rules and regulations. But when it comes to the finances of things, a lot of things are the same. So
Money is money, regardless.
exactly.
Green
Exactly. And
spends wherever.
right, exactly. And if I'm working as I would prefer to with a mediator or an attorney in that specific area, they've got the laws down. I'm here to support in the financial aspect of it. And sometimes it's really fascinating. I get contacted by people. I had a case where one person was in East Coast state and the other person was on the West Coast. The marital home was on the West Coast. It was a fascinating situation. And I
Well,
had to help them figure out how to do this divorce and divide up the assets in a way that would work. And obviously, as far as the law went, I was very clear. Your attorney is going to help you with that side of things. I'm helping you with the financial side of things.
wow. Well, you definitely just segued right into my next question quite easily. Every divorce is unique, and
Yes,
you definitely have been involved in some unique cases.
yes.
Someone who is just embarking on the journey of divorce, what's that little nugget, heads up advice that you would give to that individual?
So, probably the essence of any financial plan or financial transition in life is knowing your expenses. And to some extent, I understand that you may not know exactly your expenses. post divorce. But to the best of your ability, you're going to want to look at what your expenses are now and project what they will be post divorce. What are the things that you've taken for granted that your spouse maybe paid for or that you both paid for that will now be your responsibility? Because to cut everything in half is not reality. It's a sad but true fact that when one spouse dies or when there's a divorce, well, guess what? There's still a lot of expenses that continue to be
Right.
the same.
Right.
Right. So you have to keep that in mind. So understanding your expenses, understanding your finances, and then also understanding the nature of those expenses. Are there some of them that are essential? Those are key. Are there others that are discretionary? Are you going to need to adapt your lifestyle? These are things you have to ask yourself and understand. I'm not here to be anyone's mother, to be their judge and make them feel bad
Right.
about what they spend on and how they spend. That being said, if they have those moments to themselves and look at that and analyze that, that will help them and any professionals working with them to come up with strategies and plans and proposals that will be more realistic.
Wow. What a great way to put that. I heard know your numbers,
Yes.
which is why they need to speak to a CDFA. At the same time, Starbucks runs and eating out all the time may still be part of your life. Maybe, maybe not, or maybe we need to alter that. Maybe it needs to be, instead of 5 times a week, it could be three. You could
Right.
still enjoy life. That doesn't mean absolutely no, none, or you can't, but knowing your numbers
Right.
really, really is the key.
If your spouse did all the cooking, then you've got to take that into account. What are you going to do? Are you going to get some kind of subscription? Are you going to eat out all
Right.
the time? Like, what are you going to do? It's fascinating because I have a variety of clients and I've had a variety of clients over the years. And you can't always assume that it's the wife who cooks. Sometimes it's the husband who's the gourmet
Yes.
cook or a really great cook.
Yes.
Um, but the bottom line is you got to think about all those little things.
You are my first interview that has talked about do you cook or not? And that is an impact in the divorce.
I mean, it's a real thing to think
It,
about.
it impacts your numbers. It impacts your dollars that you spend, right?
Yes, yes,
Wow.
definitely, definitely.
That's the fun fact tip that I hope everyone it takes away because we've interviewed other financials and boy oh boy, not nobody has talked about the mediation training that you talked about. Nobody has talked the same way about arming themselves with the DLA, and absolutely nobody has talked about whether or not you need a subscription for food.
Well, let me just put it to you this way. I am very much someone who loves food. I would not call myself a foodie because I know true foodies are real connoisseurs and they have refined palates. I don't know that I have a refined palate. I just like good food and I like nourishing food and healthy food. So that matters to me. So maybe that's why. And I also happen to be a little hungry right now. So maybe that's it too.
Note to self, no recording before lunchtime.
So,
Well, this, I got to tell you, this has just been a great interview. So, but I won't let you go just yet. We have to wrap up. We have to give the listeners a couple details. First
sure.
and foremost, how can they find you?
So the nextchapterdivorce.com is my website and has a lot of great information on there. You can also find me on LinkedIn and Facebook. Again, the next chapter divorce.
Thank you. And you've already given such great advice already. Is there any last thought that you'd like to share with the listeners?
I'd say that divorce, like many life transitions, can really be challenging. But if you approach it constructively and positively, it can just mark the beginning of a new chapter. That doesn't mean there won't be difficulties, but if you approach it as positively as possible, it means that you and hopefully your ex can emerge from this in a way where you feel good about yourself and you feel good about the choices that you've made. And knowledge is truly power in every life transition, especially divorce.
And now we know why. You're the next chapter divorce. Thank you so very much. This was wonderful. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you, Amy, for having me. And thank you for what you do and your team does, helping folks with the mortgage aspect of divorce.
We're so happy to partner with you. Thank you.